Okay, today we are talking about Greywater Reclamation System wiring. So if you're not familiar with the Greywater Reclamation System, here's a graphic that shows you the main components and how they're plumbed together. This is a system I designed. All your raw gray water comes into this green processing tank, where the water is then pumped through a diatomaceous earth reusable pleated filter, then through a UV sanitizer. You could also have a submersible UV sanitizer in the processing tank, and it's kidney looped over and over again. You then have a distribution pump controlled by a pressure switch that supplies the treated gray water to your toilets for flushing and filling, for laundry, for industrial process like mop bucket filling, or for small landscape irrigation. So here's sort of a generic layout. You can see on the first floor, this could be a basement. You have your gray water reclamation system. You can see your gray water tank, your filter and filter pump, your dispensing pump. You can see you have your overflow pipe that goes to your main sewer drain line with P-trap and air admittance valve. You have your control panel on the wall. You have your treated gray water distribution manifold here with shutoff valves. You can see in this house, the gray water is supplying water to the toilet, the clothes washer, and the outside hose bib. Just a quick note, gray water is not used for potable use. It's only for non-potable use, as you see here. You can harvest rainwater, filter it and sanitize the rainwater for drinking, cooking, and showering, but not gray water. Gray water is also different than black water. Black water comes from the human waste from toilets, the drain water from dishwashers, and the drain water from kitchen sinks. That's considered black water. We are not talking about black water, gray water only. Again, gray water comes from bathroom tubs, showers, bathroom sinks, and washing machines. So with that information out of the way, let's get back to the purpose of this video. As I said at the top of the video, this is about the wiring schematic, or how to wire your gray water reclamation system. So as you see here, we got 120 volt single phase AC power coming in to our control panel on the top left corner here. This is a 20 amp GFCI. You could also use a 20 amp GFCI circuit breaker. The way you determine what size circuit breaker or what size outlet you need to use to supply your gray water system, you need to add up the ampacity of your filter pump, your supply pump, and your UVC sterilizer. In this case, we're right at about 18 amps, so we're pretty much maxing out that 20 amp dedicated circuit for this gray water system. So you can see across the top, we have our hot 120 volt screw terminal block, our neutral terminal block, and our ground terminal bar or terminal block. All the black wires are 120 volt hot wires. All the white wires on this schematic are your 120 volt neutrals. All your green wires are your ground wires. All your red wires are 24 volt AC hot wires. All your blue wires are your 24 volt AC neutral or common wires. So what controls the filter pump? Well, if we follow the wiring, you can see that the filter pump gets its power from this 120 volt contactor. The contactor has a 24 volt coil. That 24 volt coil is energized by this time delay relay. And that time delay relay is gets its trigger to send 24 volts to the coil from either this inline 24 volt flow sensor switch that goes inside the gray water inlet pipe. So just before the gray water falls into the tank, it would flow over the sensor, closing the circuit, telling that time delay relay to pull in that coil. The contactor closes, turns the filter pump on, and there is also a 24 volt programmable timer that is battery powered. So you can set that timer to run that filter pump for longer periods of time. Woo! And the time delay relay gets its 24 volt power supply from this step down transformer. You can see it's 120 volts coming in on the primary wires of the transformer, and then on the secondary side, or the output side of the transformer, it's 24 volts. And there's an inline fuse here. Now, as far as the supply pump that supplies your toilets for flushing and filling, or your landscaping, your washing machine, your whatever industrial process, that supply pump is controlled by a pressure switch. This one happens to be set at 30 psi for cut-in, 50 psi for cut-out pressure. But there's adjustments you can make on those to fit your specific need. Woo! And you can see this even has a bladder tank where it's filled with air, and then there's water on the other side. The submersible UVC sterilizer that you see here would get submerged into the gray water tank, and this 120 volt programmable timer would be what sends power to that UVC sterilizer. The programmable timer has a high enough rated amperage to do that, because the UVC sterilizer in this case only draws 0.5 amps. So that programmable timer, you could set that sterilizer to come on a couple hours in the morning during peak usage times when people are taking showers and sending gray water into the gray water system. Come on in the evening when people are taking showers again, brushing their teeth. You get the idea. That's a great thing about these timers is you can set them to your specific schedule. So that means your filter pump does not need to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The UVC sterilizer does not need to be on 24/7 either. Woo! And just a quick note, the size of your gray water tank will be based on how much gray water you produce and how much gray water you consume. And just a basic overall idea of how you calculate that, you got to look at how many plumbing fixtures you have in your house. What is the flow rate for your shower heads, your bathroom sink faucets? What is a gallons per flush rating for your toilets? How many toilets do you have? How many people live in your house? How many showers per day do you take? How many loads of laundry per week do you do? How many gallons of water does your washing machine use? So that way you can factor all that in to come up with a size gray water tank that suits your specific needs. It's not a one size fits all. Another thing you'll note, there is a freshwater makeup solenoid valve here. So that is for in the event that, say, you go away on vacation and you're not producing any gray water, you come home after a week or several days, you flush your toilet, but you don't have enough gray water in your gray water tank, let's say, that float switch will obviously drop down inside the tank, close its internal switch, send power to the solenoid valve. That'll allow fresh water to flow into your gray water tank and maintain a minimum water level so you don't cavitate or run your pumps dry, and so you always have water supply to flush and fill your toilets. Woo! But again, you adjust that float switch to maybe fill the tank a third full. If you allow the float switch to float all the way up and fill the entire tank, you're kind of defeating your purpose of having a gray water system. So keep that in mind. You'll also note there is some toggle switches in line, so you can safely shut off your filter pump when you clean out your diatomaceous earth plated cartridge filter. You can also shut off your supply pump if you need to repair, replace it. Shut off power to the transformer, power to the solenoid valve, power to the UVC sterilizer. Last thing I want to note, the 24-volt battery-powered timer and the 24-volt flow sensor each have power flowing to one side of them at all times from terminal 6 and 7 on the time delay relay. When the timer closes its internal switch, meaning it's ready to run the program that you set it to run the filter pump on. So let's say you run the filter pump 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. When that closes, or when the flow sensor senses water flowing over its contacts, that will close and complete the circuit back to the relay across terminal 6 and 7 on that time delay relay, which again, either one of those will then cause 24 volts to be sent over to the coil on that contactor to energize the filter pump. Now the time delay relay, they come in different time ratings. This one I believe is only able to run up to 5 minutes before it times out and turns the power off. Whereas if you have the programmable timer installed in parallel, that programmable timer will send a 24-volt trigger signal to the time delay relay and cause that relay to send 24 volts to the coil on the contactor to run the filter pump for however long you set the programmable timer.
Wow.
So in other words, that flow sensor may only sense a little bit of water flowing over it when you wash your hands in the bathroom sink for maybe a few seconds. Once that trigger signal is sent to the time delay relay, after it stops receiving the signal from the flow sensor, the time delay relay countdown starts. So it'll allow that pump to run for 5 minutes, and then it's going to shut off. Whereas if it receives a signal from the programmable battery-powered timer, and that battery-powered timer continues to send a signal to the time delay relay for 1 or 2 hours, that relay is going to continue to send 24 volts to that contactor coil to allow that filter pump to run for that 1 or 2 hours. Once the relay stops receiving that trigger signal from that programmable battery-powered timer, then the internal time delay timer in the relay itself will begin its 5-minute countdown and just run for that next 5 minutes, and then it will open its contacts and stop sending 24 volts to the coil on the contactor, thereby shutting off the filter pump. I hope this information helps you with your project. If you have a better way that you think this system can be or should be wired or controlled, please leave me a comment. I'd love to hear your ideas or suggestions. I'm always open to making improvements. If you got any value out of this video, please consider subscribing or hit the like button. That helps this channel move up in the YouTube algorithm so we can reach more people with their home maintenance and repair tasks and facilities maintenance and repair tasks. Please like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment, and thanks for watching.